What does $1 million in cash look like?
Well, $1 million is not that much, but
That's quite a lot.
yeah. I was asked in the last, podcast, he said, how much money did you see at one time? What was the most money you've seen at one time?
Great question, actually. I might put it down.
And it was about 50.
So, Michael, what was your big crime? Because you did go to prison. You ended up going to prison.
Yeah.
So what was the big crime?
Well, the biggest business, enterprise, scam, whatever you want to call it, that I engineered was in a wholesale gasoline business.
Right.
Make a very long story short and a very intricate scheme short, I devised a scheme along with a partner who was very intelligent to defraud the government out of tax on every gallon of petrol, you call it, gasoline.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran that operation for about almost 8 years, ended up going to prison for it, but because my partner became an informant. But at the height of our operation, we were selling 500 million gallons of gas a month, taking down American, U.S., 20, 30, 40 cents a gallon. So we were bringing in $7, $8, $9 million a week at one point in time.
And you and your partner in crime developed this concept, this scheme.
Yeah, well, let's put it this way. There were other people that were trying to do it, and there was Russian people that were doing it, and they were doing it, but nobody mastered it the way we did because we had many of them coming to us to buy from us and use our licenses. So there were a few people into it, but we were the big ones.
Right.
We were the, whatever your biggest department store is here, we were that.
Gerald's.
Yeah.
It's Norwich.
Yeah.
So that money that you're getting are you having to pay some of that up to the family?
Yes.
And then with the licenses, how does that work? So you need official licenses to be able to do it?
Yes.
But you're not official?
Well, when you say official, they were state licenses that you had to get. And I had 18 companies that were licensed to collect the tax. And I had political connections that helped me get the license, and I was paying them. So, and they were very hard to get, very hard to get. That's one of the reasons why we were the premier guys in town on that, because we had so many licenses.
Right.
And a license under our mechanism, our scheme, was able to collect this tax for about 10 months until the government came down on us because we weren't paying them, obviously. But what would happen, we'd have an office, a little different than this, and when that 10 months came and they came down with guns blasting, we'd close that office. Nobody would be there. We moved on to the next office with the next license that was unrelated to the first one. So it was kind of a daisy chain. We just kept moving around the city with different licenses, and they couldn't connect.
I'm known by my audience to be a little bit slow, a little bit thick, a bit stupid.
He sees it.
Yeah, he's got it. He didn't even. I
wasn't going to say that.
So can you dumb it down for me a bit, Michael? How are you getting the money? So you're going into gasoline stations and you're telling the people who work there that they need to pay you for the gasoline.
Well, a variation of that. We go into a gas station.
Yeah.
I send a salesperson or myself, maybe in the very beginning. It's a mobile station. You have mobile here, British Petroleum. We got BP.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
BP station, they have their signs up there and everything. I go into them and said, how much you paying for your gas? They said, we're paying $1.10 a gallon. Okay. How would you like to pay $1 a gallon? 10 cents is a lot.
Yeah.
Because you're doing volume, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'd love to do that. How many loads are you buying from BP? We're buying 6. Okay. Buy 4 from them, buy 2 from us. We'll send it to you in the middle of the night, all right? Before you know it, now they're making that extra 10 cents a gallon, which is a lot. They're coming back, hey, can we buy, 4 from you and 2 from BP? I said, well, you can't do that. You still have to buy from British Petroleum. We didn't have to force them because we would give them the bill of sale, would say all taxes included. That's it. That's all they cared about. So if somebody came to them, hey, I paid the tax. That's it.
Right.
And then that's how the government would come to us. But we'd get 10 months out of that before the government moves slow. They don't move quick.
Yeah.
So we didn't force anybody.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that happened, you would love us if we were here now, because if we were collecting 40 cents that we weren't paying the government, we lowered the price at the pumps, so that we would give some back to the consumer.
Yeah.
So they were paying less at the gas stations that we were supplying. So they were happy. They called us the Robin Hoods of the, later on when the publicity came out. We were Robin Hoods.
That sounds like.
And then the other thing is, listen to this. We were buying gas off of BP, Mobil, Shell Oil, all the big ones. We were buying barges as they came over from the Middle East.
Yeah.
And sometimes you trade them, as the boat's coming over, you're selling it because gas prices fluctuate. And when the FBI, our Federal Bureau of Investigation, went to Mobil and BP and said, hey, you're dealing with the mafia. We don't know how they're doing it, but they're doing it. Well, they didn't care because we were buying so much gas off of them. They would go, oh, yeah, if we find out, we'll let you know. And get out of here. Yeah. So even though we were selling to their stations, we were buying off of them. We were increasing volume. So they didn't care. It was the greatest scheme ever. Ever since the days of Prohibition, there was nothing better than the gas business. I can tell you that right now. Yeah.
Well, that's up there with like me scamming on Habbo, isn't it?
No.
Because who are you hurting? You're not hurting anybody. The government, the tax, what do they do with the tax?
Just the government,
They may as well flush it down the toilet. They waste all the money. I don't know how they do it here.
Yeah.
But in America, they waste 90% of the money that we're paying. It's just a fact.
It's not great here.
No.
Either.
Yeah. So, we're not hurting anybody.
It's actually a really sexy scam, isn't it? Isn't it? It's cool. Like everyone sort of benefits bar the government. That is good. Oh, shall we start? Shall we do that now?
I don't think we could.
Do you reckon we could do that?
No.
Every time you've been mentioning, sometimes we say mob and sometimes we say mafia. Is there a difference between the two of those, or is it just...
Look, the mob could be anything. It could be, but they call it the mob. But it's really, organized crime would be the sophisticated moniker you'd put on it. But the actual organization is either Mafia, Cosa Nostra, one of the two.
Right. You mentioned you were earning $7, $8, $9 million a month, a week. Oh, fucking hell! Wow.
Don't diminish my deal.
What is that cash?
Some cash, yeah.
What does that look like? What does $1 million in cash look like?
Well, $1 million is not that much, but
That's quite a lot.
yeah. I was asked in the last, podcast, he said, how much money did you see at one time? What was the most money you've seen at one time?
Great question, actually. I might put it down.
And it was about $50 million.
In cash? Cold hard cash?
What does that look like?
Yeah.
That looked like a lot because we were collecting it off of gas stations. So there were 5s and 10s and 20s. So it was a bulky sum. When I first met my wife, this poor young girl had no clue what she was getting into. We're married 38 years now, but I used to come home. She didn't know. I was in the gas business. I had automobile dealerships. I was in the film business.
Oh, you didn't tell her that you're in the... You're not allowed to tell her you're in the...
Well, I didn't say, hey, honey, just want you to know I'm a criminal and a thief, and, in case you want to make a decision about it. No, you never tell your girls anything. No. I mean, they get to know as time goes on, but you don't sit down and tell them, right? And she's from Anaheim, California. I'm from New York. She saw The Godfather once. That was it.
Yeah.
She didn't even know the mob existed, right? So I used to come home with a bunch of cash, and I said, man, I got all these 5s and 10s, and I used to throw them on the bed. I said, give these to your brother and your sister and everything. I have no place to put these. And she would look at me like, oh, okay. She had no clue why, And
she didn't ask questions?
Well, she did. I used to say, honey, I got a lot of money, but we don't need the 5s and 10s. I got plenty of 50s and 100s, And so I gave it to her, and she didn't really, she didn't know what it was for.
Yeah.
I didn't tell her, hey, I'm stealing the money from the government, I didn't do that. So she just felt it was part of my business.
Right.
And when I say throw money, I gave it to her and I said, listen, take care of your brothers and your sisters and your family.
Yeah.
And it was just a nice gesture,
Have you ever seen Breaking Bad?
I love that series.
The scene when all the money stacked up in the garage and
the
guy jumps in it and swims in it. Did you ever swim in money?
No. No.
Is that kind of what it looked like when you saw the 50 mil?
Yeah, I mean, we had to stack it up, and as a matter of fact, there was a time when we used to take it to the bank, and the money would smell of gasoline, and so it's kind of like, where's this money coming from? So we devised a scheme. I don't know. I remember how I found out, but I had to buy a refrigerator, and put the money in the refrigerator with baking soda, or baking powder, and that would take the smell out. So when we brought it to the bank, they wouldn't ask questions. These are complicated things when you have a lot of money and you have to figure out how to wash it, launder it.
Well, what is that then? What is dirty money? What is clean money? And how do you wash money?
Well, dirty money is money that's illegal, that's illegitimate. You're robbing it, stealing it, defrauding, whatever. And washing money is putting money into a legitimate business so that you can take it out and it's cleaned up. It's legitimate. You're laundering it.
And the mafia would do that?
Yeah. Restaurants, because you take a lot of cash. Well, back then you did. There's a lot of cash that went through a restaurant. So you'd put the cash in and then take it out, and it was legitimate.